Hello everyone, and welcome to Attaining the Second Cognition. I'm Gemma Beall. In the past, we've produced a video called Stop Thinking Like a Human, and we chronicled the many ways the humans think and act that goes against Psoyca nature. In the past videos and recent videos, we've talked about and addressed many different topics that are all mere pixels of a very large picture once you put the pixels together in your mind. There's nothing in the old videos or the new that aren't interrelated and interconnected in some way. What I want to share in this presentation is how our perceptions of Stop Thinking Like a Human was a limited perception, and how the dots appeared to me all along my path in the form of information, but didn't form a full picture in my mind, and I didn't have the understanding of the interconnectedness of the pieces until here recently, and the realization until today. We do have to stop thinking like humans, but in the process, we need to start thinking like a Psoyca. In order for this to make sense, I'm going to need to digress a bit in order to share my experiences to weave together the information. Now, I'm also going to throw in a qualifier here to not judge any of this information or jump to mental perceptions. Just observe. Endel and I had a Native American friend that passed away a few years ago. He was a shaman or medicine man in his culture. About 6+ years ago, we hadn't talked to our friend in many months, and one night out of the blue he called and told Endel he had a message for me. When I got on the phone, he said, "You have owl medicine." I wasn't sure what he meant, so I asked him, and he said owl was my totem, and that I had the energy of that totem within my being, and it was time for me to start utilizing it. After we got off the phone, Endel and I sat and talked about this, but we didn't have any understanding, and our friend wasn't going to tell me. He simply said, "You have to ask Al and let him tell you." Within 24 hours, owls began making their presence known to me almost on a daily basis before I finally sat down and said, "Okay, owl spirit, talk to me." Al didn't talk to me the way that humans talk to each other. His communication was straight up feel, but the concepts he shared with me was something I felt and knew in my Psoyca. The message he relayed is that owls are not wise, not the concept that humans believe, because humans don't understand the meaning of wisdom. Owls observe. They are predatory animals, meaning that they eat other animals in the form of food, but they aren't hunters like hawks are, they're observers. An owl will observe its prey and note every detail of the prey, so that when the owl strikes, they use the least amount of energy for the most amount of reward. They never strike before they understand their prey in full, and they only strike once, with accuracy, unlike a hawk, which often strikes in haste and misses the target. Now, I know a lot of you are probably wondering why I'm bringing up New Age shit here. I told you there was a time on my path that I've embraced and held as truth a lot of the New Age beliefs, and the beliefs in animal totems was one of them. After my discussion with Owl, I pulled out my animal totem book, the one that is the most well-renowned, and looked up what the animal totem meant. There was nothing in this New Age totem book that stated what Owl shared with me. When I weighed the information in the book versus what Owl told me, I felt in my Psoyca the message relayed by Owl was closer to the truth than the gobbledygook in the book. When you're finished watching this video, Google animal totems and see what you find. Then contemplate this information I just shared with what you find and see what your Psoyca says. Animal totems are real, but the New Age information about them is straight up bullshit. If you want to know what the animal totem means to you, all you have to do is ask the animal totem. At that time, I knew what Owl told me was something that I carried within me, because one of the 3D qualities I've always had people tell me and praise me for was my attention to detail and my keen observational skills. However, I didn't apply this skill towards my path because I viewed it as a 3D ego habit of being anal retentive about not wanting to look stupid by making mistakes and being unobservant. Fast forward 6 years. If you've read any of our written works, you know that I have traits and I have the abilities to communicate with other beings that are not necessarily in human form. As a Psoyca sentient, we came here in order to shift this energetic and false reality to one where tyranny doesn't exist. We all knew that coming into these earth human incarnations that we would be heavily, and I do mean heavily, indoctrinated and programmed beyond measure, so we needed an ally, a teacher of sorts, that is not in a human incarnation in order to remain as a Psoyca without indoctrination to help us remember what we came here to do and why. We've been working with our allies for over a decade, but it wasn't until recently that we began working with them more and specifically about removing the filters and the layers of indoctrinations that we've all been saddled with. These allies only communicate with us by means of us asking questions, and they give us enough information to begin our internal questioning process with our Psoycas, so our Psoycas can begin remembering and we can begin thinking like a Psoyca again. They don't tell us anything we don't ask, as I explained in my book, Advanced Teachings. In one of our conversations over our hiatus, we were given the answer: egos assume, perceive, and react. Psoycas observe, feel, and know. The information I've shared with you about this is the information that my Psoyca extrapolated from the breadcrumbs that our ally gave us. In another conversation, in response to one of our questions, we were told there is a difference between energy emissions and energy expenditure. From my contemplation of this information, I could clearly see the difference between emitting energy and expending energy. Expend means to spend or use up. In my other works, I've gone into great detail about energy, and I explain how I see, view, and can read it, and this is something I've spent years in deep contemplation working to understand beyond the limited amount of bullshit information that we've been provided with in the mainstream marketplace. We all emit energy through our natural energy flow, including giving it away freely to deplete our natural storage of it. We also have others that will steal this energy from us, most of the time without us even knowing, but energy expenditure is the energy we use for various things. When we think as a primary process, we expend energies to deplete our own natural sources. This means that the energy is not leaving us and going elsewhere, it's being used up entirely. A lot of New Age teachings will tell you that energy is everlasting and it only moves from one place to the next, it never dies, but I will tell you that is straight up bullshit, and I'll explain why. Our physical forms may need food in order to fuel the body, but our Psoyca needs energy in order to fuel our consciousness. Our Psoycas don't replenish themselves by taking and replacing its particles from one source to another. It generates new particles from conscious thought, i.e. intent. Without the intent to generate new particles, we burn up our Psoyca particles on expending energies on things that do not serve our Psoyca. The best analogy I can use to describe this for understanding is this. If you sit in a car with it idling, it uses up gas. If you drive 10 miles down the road, it uses up gas. The same process happens regardless if we are in motion or sitting idle. Gas is expended. I'm sure each and every one of you has experienced at some point in your life the feeling of being spiritually drained. Like your energy, your spiritual energy is depleted, and it takes you participating in some spiritual activity to recharge yourself. Let's take a different approach to understanding energy expenditure by looking at what Don Juan taught in The Eagle's Gift, when he said that the human energy field looked like a luminous egg that surrounds our form. I could personally attest that this luminous egg does not exist in actuality, but it's a metaphor he used to relate this story about human energy expenditure. Don Juan eventually taught Castaneda that humans have been taken over by what he called predators. Don Juan's predator is the mind parasite, the Hepime virus. Don Juan taught that humans start out as children as these vibrant, luminous eggs, but that throughout the course of our lives, this personal energy well is eaten away so much that by the time we die, this energy may only be found around our toes. Again, Don Juan relating this in his way of explaining how the Hepime virus feeds on us and our energies, constantly depleting us by making us expend our energies through thinking processes that mentally fatigue us, as well as making us expend amplified emotional energies to feed itself. This, ladies and gentlemen, is energy expenditure. When you get lost in worry or self-pity, anger, depression, guilt, or grief, you're feeding the Hepime virus by thinking and acting like a human and depleting your Psoyca in the process. To stop this incessant energy expenditure and reclaim the power of your Psoyca, you must rid yourself of all of the beliefs you defend and the energy you waste defending these beliefs, no matter what they are. By ridding yourself of these habits and tearing down the castle walls of the Hapim virus, you start to reclaim your Psoyca energies as you free yourself from the mind traps designed to steal and feed on your personal energies. When you look at your life, whether we are talking about your 3D life in general or your spiritual life, what are the things that expend your Psoyca energies? What are the things that make you feel spiritually drained? What are the things that you do that replenish your Psoyca energies? For me, walking in nature recharges me spiritually. Sharing what I've learned on my path also recharges me spiritually because it is Psoyca work. What energetically depletes me? Dealing with first cog people that don't understand what we're doing and don't even try. And dealing with first cog in general. Playing ego battles or habits in my head was very spiritually draining when I used to do that. Fast forward to today. I've said many times that although I do have to function in the first cog world through my day job, my Psoyca and my Psoyca path are my primary focus. I focus on first cog only to do my job task and to interact with the people I must interact with, but on my break time or drive to and from work, I'm contemplating my path and reviewing and seeing what I can see. What I'm sharing right now are the insights I gained today. If you look at what I shared that came into my awareness 6+ years ago and what I shared that came into my awareness a few months ago, the messages, although relayed in different manners, said the same thing. Both talked about observation and expending energy. When I received the message a few months ago, I didn't even think about the message that Al gave me all those years ago. I remembered it today. Endel recently produced a video called Spherical Thinking. I've produced several videos talking about the necessity of feeling on the Psoyca path. Soon, one of us, or maybe both of us, will produce a video on thinking as a secondary process, instead of the ego thinking as a primary process. So keep this in mind and contemplate the concept in your own mind to see what you come up with in the meantime. In our videos, we have talked about observations, and the realizations that I had today has to do with spherical observation. We are linear creatures because our indoctrination has made us linear creatures. Then we have this timeline that makes our movement through our daily lives linear in the aspect of past, present, and future. The more spiritually and cognitively aware I've become, the less concept I have of linear time. And in my day job, I never work on the current day, date-wise. I'm always working on dates in the past or dates in the future. So this absence of the concept of time in my 3D life, I feel has helped me being more fluid in my spirit path where time measurement is concerned. But it didn't keep me from spherical observing where my path is concerned. But now I know, and now I create a new Psoyca habit. In my reasons to share video, I talked about why I find it beneficial to share, and that is because it forces us to analyze our paths and our experiences in a broader manner in order to share. It also gives us the opportunity to revisit our paths in the past, which does help us gain better understanding and clarification. But in this process, we need to be spherical in our observations of our past experiences, and the realizations I gained today is a prime example of why. In going through this process, thinking as a primary function is not going to help you gain the clarity and wisdom from the information you've obtained throughout your path. Only observing the information and your previous perceptions with detachment will give you the clarity and insights to see more. I had two separate and unrelated experiences, years apart, and information imparted by two separate and non-connected sources told me the same thing, although delivered in a different manner and in different contexts, but ultimately it was the same message. I didn't understand this at first because I was at the lower level of cognitive and perceptual awareness and didn't have the wisdom to understand it or the insights to delve further. Even in the new revelation of information that took place only a few months ago, I had a far better understanding of the information, but connecting the two experiences and correlating the messages together gave me the realization that I received today. It was only in observing my past experiences in a spherical manner that I gained this realization. If you are paying attention to our videos and using our tips on asking yourself the questions, are you benefiting from asking these questions to yourself? If so, try asking your Psoyca this question. Do I have separate experiences on my path that connect to and paint a larger picture? If the answer is yes, Instruct your Psoyca. Show me. I want to thank everyone for listening to and considering this information. Thank you to all of our subscribers, and thank you for your support. Until next time, stay the course and don't give up on yourself.